This is the Calhoun County Chamber of Commerce political forum question. And we're here today with Alabama House of Representatives Becky Nordgren in District 29, representing in our area. And Representative Nordgren, we're glad to have you with us today.
Good to be here.
Would you share just a brief bio or what a little bit about yourself for the people that are watching?
Well, as you said, I'm Becky Nordgren. I am married to Eric Nordgren. We've been married 29 years. We have 3 children, Eric, Miles, and Millie. And we just had our first grandson, June 21st. And his name is Gustav, and we call him Gus. I've been serving in the Alabama House of Representatives since 2010. This will be my 3rd term. I am very strong on the Health Committee. I've been acting chair on the Economic Development and Tourism Committee, and I have also served on the State Government Committee.
Okay. Thank you. We'll get into our questions now. Our first question is on infrastructure. With the infrastructure challenges facing the state, what are your solutions for those infrastructure issues, and how would you fund them?
Infrastructure issue is top of the mind awareness for all of us. We have been talking about that for several sessions. Our roads and our bridges are in great need of repair, but in addition to that, because the economy is growing at the pace it's growing, and we're so pleased about that, that's making the need to widen roads. If you've traveled to the beach, you can see what's happening on I-65. We have rural areas in my district that need much attention. So what we're doing is we're trying to get more information from the federal government on President Trump's plan for his infrastructure plan, and he's got one. What we're hearing are several different things, and the one that I hope we land on, which I don't know if we will or not, is that they will increase funding for roads and infrastructures to a certain point without our state having to make a match. But then after that point, we would have to make a match. We've got to figure out what that match is before we can get up a game plan on how we're going to fund that match.
Okay, thank you. Our next question deals with prescriptions. While prescriptions for opioids have fallen nationwide since 2012, Alabama still experiences a high rate of opioid-related prescriptions. In 2016, there were at least 1.2 opioid prescriptions for every individual in the state, and an 82% increase in deaths from overdoses between 2006 and 2014. What potential measures do you support that might help mitigate this crisis?
Well, the opioid crisis is just that, a crisis. The amount of deaths have increased 2-fold or 3-fold over the last 5 years. We have a task force the governor set up to it's mainly made up of the medical community, police officers, and what they're trying to do is get their minds together on how we can alleviate this problem without it affecting people who are in dire need of those pain management prescriptions and things like that. The task force presented several bills through Health Committee just this last session. One of them, the fentanyl bill that Representative Weaver carried, we got that passed, which upped the classification of that crime for possessing fentanyl. And that's just one of the many tentacles that we're attacking in that issue. And as the task force gives us information on which direction that we should take, we will attack it as one of our #1 priorities.
Okay, thank you. Our next question deals with the budget. With the challenges of the next budget, what would considerations and all the different things that are affecting the budget, what are your priorities in the first session, and how would you fund them?
For the budget,
yes.
The budget needs, well, one thing with the Education Trust Fund budget that we've done over the past few years is increase. And we started the pre-K program with with just putting a few classes out there for different schools across the state. We've increased that considerably every year. This year we're hoping to have a tremendous amount of 4K programs in all our school systems, not a tremendous amount per system, but statewide. And to do that, we will have to put more money into that with the Education Trust Fund budget. But fortunately, because the economy is going so great in Alabama, our budgets are going to have more revenue than we saw last year. And last year was a great year for our revenue in the Education Trust Fund budget. In the general fund budget, that operates a little bit differently, but it's still looking a lot, we're poised to do a lot better with that. One reason is because the number of Medicaid patients that we're funding through Medicaid, which is our biggest portion of the general fund budget, has come down. And that will free up a little bit of money in our general fund. So we should be able to address the needs that we need to. And some of that money in the general fund might even help us with some of our infrastructure needs as well.
Okay, thank you. Our next question deals with population. In your district, with the declining population, what are your views and ideas on how to turn that trend around?
The economic development issue in Etowah County and Calhoun County, one of the reasons, and studies have shown that if new industry comes to our area, we have to have broadband, throughout. So this last session we passed the rural broadband bill, and hopefully many parts of my district that are rural will have, are getting right now even, access to a high-speed internet. So once we have the high-speed internet in place, that will make us more attractive to new industry. And thus, of course, where the jobs are, so is the population. And hopefully by doing that, we will attract back some of the people that have moved closer to their places of employment. And we'll be poised to even grow even further than that in the future. So we're working on that. Also, another thing that inhibits economic growth is anytime you have discourse between city, local, and state governments, like in the press, new industry sees that confrontation in the press where they're not getting along, and they kind of put you on the back burner. So we're going to have to all work together to make this happen.
Great, thank you. What are your solutions to help provide necessary resources to support Alabama's current and future workforce needs?
Could you repeat that? I'm sorry.
Sure. What are your solutions to help provide necessary resources to support Alabama's current and future workforce needs?
Well, of course, we have a workforce council. We've passed several pieces of legislation to incentivize through scholarships, given industries and businesses tax incentives if they provide scholarships for the the workforce careers like welding and different things like that. We need to educate the industries that we have those programs, because I feel there's a disconnect in some of the legislation that we have passed and will be passing to increase that and make us and help us have a workforce, ready workforce out there. The businesses need to know some of the advantages they can take by working with us to help encourage these students to get in some of those technical fields and be ready for the industry that we want to attract in the near future.
Thank you. What measure would you support to better stabilize hospital finances in order to prevent future closings?
That is a tough one. Our hospitals in the state of Alabama operate a little bit differently than other states as far as their Medicaid reimbursement goes from the federal government. It's done, there's I think one or two other states that the federal government treats the same way. What we're hoping to do, and Governor Ivey has mentioned several times in the past, and has requested actually, is to get a block grant from the federal government for Medicaid reimbursement so that these hospitals will be more assured of payment when they help and treat indigent patients. So I think that's key. A hospital operates, if they're losing money, they just pretty much can't keep their doors open. So as a state, what we need to do, and I think President Trump is in line to help us out, is get the block grants that we need so that we can navigate Medicaid to the places needed most in the proper order.
Okay, thank you. If you would, just take a minute to reflect on anything that you thought of during your previous answers or questions that you would like to add that you didn't mention, or just anything that you would like for the voters to know.
Well, one thing I want the voters to know is that the legislature in the last few years and the one that's coming up, we have incorporated forensic budgeting in our budgets. And one reason why our budgets have looked at good in the past few years is because of those measures that we've taken to do the forensic budgeting. We've saved our taxpayers over $100 million through that forensic budgeting. And we've done that by making the agencies who have line items in our budget present to us what they're spending it on. And in so doing, we've been able to negate things that were redundant, that were costly, and streamlined it so that we were already 100 million. I wish it was billion. We're 100 million ahead of the game in those savings, and we're continuing to do that. And then again, we have a task force looking for some of that pork and some of those budgets so that we can weed out that pork and even save more money. So I just want the voters to know that that's top of the mind awareness for me and several others, is to make sure that our budgets are spent wisely.
Thank you. Representative Nordgren, we'd like to thank you for your service to the Alabama House of Representatives in District 29, and we thank you for your willingness to continue to serve.
Thank you. Appreciate it.